Divi Nation. Thank you for joining us in this live stream. Today, we're going to show you how to create frequently asked questions tabs inside Divi. So if you're not Elegant Themes member yet, make sure that you check out Divi in one of the links in the description below. And without any further ado, let's get to it. All right, so I want to say hi to everyone on Facebook and YouTube. If you guys have questions, please leave a comment in the comment section or in the live chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on those. So, all right, let's dive into the tutorial, and yeah, we'll just go through what you can expect from this tutorial, design-wise and functionality-wise. So over here, I have a preview on desktop, and you can notice that it's a frequently asked questions page, and it has these kind of categories at the top: most asked, pricing, account, support, and each one of these is clickable. So as you are clicking a different category within the frequently asked questions page, different questions pop up, and these are in a toggle module. So these really allow your visitors to easily navigate between different questions and different categories, and we're going to build this using Divi. Now, on smaller screen sizes, we have a similar outcome. So over here, this is the outcome you can expect. So we'll recreate this from scratch. So if you want to learn how to do this, or if you just want to see how it works from a Divi perspective, keep following. All right. So I'm going to start off with a new page. So over here I have a blank page, and I'm going to enable the visual builder at the top. And we're going to build from scratch, so I'll just choose the first option here. Now to build this, we're going to need two sections, and I'm going to start off with the first section over here. Before I add modules and stuff, I'm going to open the section settings, and I'm going to use a different background color. Let me just grab the color code really quick. So I'm using this background color. This is the design style we're going for. So if I go back to preview, this is the design style we're using, but you can make this work on any kind of frequently asked questions page. You can also use this functionality for any other kind of tabs design you want to create. It doesn't necessarily have to be for frequently asked questions, but that'll be the focus of this tutorial in particular. But you know, you can easily use this for any kind of other tabs design. All right. So next we're going to go to the spacing settings, and we're going to remove the default bottom padding of our section by adding 0 pixels. This will remove this bottom section padding and will allow this row over here to touch the bottom of our section later on the tutorial. We're also going to go to the border settings, and we'll use 1 VW for the border width, which equals viewport width for those that aren't familiar with VW. And we're also using a white color here. Just grab a white color. This will just generate a little bit of space before we add the box shadow. So it's going to be this color code, not white, but this color code. All right, and then we'll go to the box shadow options, and we're going to include a box shadow, which is the following option. I'm hovering here. I'm going to bring this down to 0 pixels, so the vertical position to 0 pixels, and 1 pixel for the blur strength. And I'm going to use inner shadow here instead of outer shadow, and a black shadow color. So this creates this kind of border that you can notice on the screen. Just a few steps. This is a combination of inner shadow and a border that has the same background color as the section. So this gives this kind of border inside of your container. And I'm also going to go to the advanced tab and increase the Z index over here in the position settings. I'm going to use 12 for the Z index, and this will just make sure that this section is placed on top of, you know, the second section, which we'll add later on. So by default, each section that comes below another section has a higher Z index than the one previous to that, and we're switching that here. It's something that's needed for this tutorial to make sure that it's responsive and that all the items are clickable at all times. All right, so yeah, let's add a new row. I'm going to use a row with one column. We're going to start off with these two modules over here, so a text module and a divider module. And then we'll focus on the clickable items and the frequently asked questions too. So before we add modules, I'm going to open the row settings, go to the sizing settings. We're going to use custom gutter width and put this to 1. This will just remove the space between our modules. So, you know, it will just remove the default padding. And we'll also assign a max width of 1380. And then we'll go to the spacing settings here, and we're going to use 3% for the top margin and bottom margin, and 1% for the left and right padding here. So these are just some design options that make this design work, but yeah, you can tweak this however you want. And now I'm going to add a module, starting with a text module, frequently asked questions. I'm going to make this H1. Now go to the H1 text settings. The font we're using is Cormorant Garamond. I hope I'm saying that right. And I'm using a bold font weight here. Also responsive text size, 60 pixels on desktop. We'll bring that down to 42 pixels on tablet and 36 on phone. And then we'll add a divider module right below this. We're making sure the show divider option is enabled. Then we'll go to the design tab, use a black text line color for it. In the sizing settings, we're going to modify the divider weight to 2 pixels, same for the height, and a max width of 150 pixels. Gives the following outcome. We're also applying a top margin just to generate a bit of space there. 4% for the top margin of our divider module. And then we'll add another row right below that, also a 1 column. So over here you can notice that these are all showing up next to each other. We are not using columns for this. We're using display flex, allowing these to show up next to each other. The reason why I chose this method is because you might be dealing with more and different kind of categories, so more than 6. By default, Divi goes up until 6 columns, so I wanted to provide you guys with a possibility to add more than 6 categories here. And if you go with this approach and you modify some settings, you can do that easily, but you can also use columns. And this is really handy for responsive design as well. So this is the method we're going for. In this tutorial, we're using 1 column, and we're just making sure that these different modules are showing next to each other by using the display inline block option later on. So before I add modules, I'm going to open the row settings, and here in the sizing settings, I'm going to enable custom gutter width, put this to 1, and we're going to increase the max width. We're using the same one as we did for the last row. For the previous one, and we're also going to remove the default top and bottom padding by adding 0 pixels to both options. All right, so now we can add modules. So we'll start by focusing on the first over here, and then we can reuse this for the other ones. So to build that, we're going to add a new text module. I'm just going to quickly check the live chat and comment section on Facebook to see if there are any questions up until now. I don't see any questions, but it seems like people are tuning in. So if you guys have questions, make sure to leave a comment on Facebook or a comment in the live chat on YouTube. All right, so over here I'm gonna add H3 title. So this could be whatever you want, really. We're going to use a white background color for it. And then we're going to style the H3 in our design tab. So we're using Carla. We're using a bold font weight. We're enabling uppercase, center text alignment, 15 pixels for the text size, and 4 pixels for letter spacing, which gives the following outcome here. And we'll also modify the width across different screen sizes. So that'll be 22% on desktop, and we'll bring this to 44% on tablet and phone. So yeah, this is one of the crucial steps of making sure that these show up next to each other, adjusting the width. So 22% because, you know, the column these modules are placed in have a width of 100% in total. So you need to divide that 100% into the number of different items. So in this case, I don't know how many there are, 4. So the max will be 25% per item. I'm just choosing a little bit less than that, 22%. And if each one of these modules has 22%, that still equals less than 100%. So alongside the inline block display property, it will allow you to show these different modules next to each other without using columns for it. All right. Then I'll go to the spacing settings, and I'm going to use 1% of right margin. This right margin will just generate some space between the different items that you can notice. We're using different padding values as well, 30 pixels for the top, 20 pixels for the bottom, 5% for the left and the right side, both of them. Then we'll add a border of 1 pixel. There we go. And we're also adding a box shadow. This option, same option over here. We're using 0 for the vertical position. Let me just grab the color code really quick. This is the color code we're going for. And we're changing this to inner shadow. And now the second very important part is including that display inline block CSS property, and you can do that within the main element of your module in the advanced tab. So display inline block, and this will allow the modules to show up next to each other. So I'm just going to reuse this 3 times. I'm just going to clone it, and you guys can watch it fall into place as I'm cloning it. So now these are all next to each other. Handy to know. Of course, you'll need to modify the content of each duplicate. So on to the next section. I'm going to, again, use a regular section. I'm going to open these section settings, and I'm going to modify the spacing values. So I'm going to use 100 pixels for the top and the bottom. So in the second section, we'll focus on the different frequently asked questions. So we're going to structure them per category. So the first row is going to be linked to the first module here, and then the second to this one, third to this one, and so forth and so on. So in this part, we'll focus on that. So I'm going to add a new row. I'm going to use 1 column. So if you haven't noticed until now, I'm focusing on creating the kind of design structure of elements that are needed for this functionality to fall into place. The actual functionality will come in the last part of this tutorial, where we use some code to link different items to each other and add a click interaction. And yeah, so we'll use CSS classes for that and so on, but now we're focusing on creating the element structure of our design. So over here I have my 1 column row. I'm going to open the row settings, go to the sizing settings. I'm going to use custom gutter width with a value of 2. And again, that same max width for my row, which is 1380 pixels. And to add the frequently asked questions, we're going to use toggle modules. So I'm just going to add a first one here. And you can add a title of your choice. and some copy of your choice there as well. So questions to your frequently asked, answers to your frequently asked questions. And then we're going to change the icon color to black. We're also going to use a custom icon size with 24 pixels there. Let's go to the toggle settings. Here I'm going to customize this just to match the look and feel of this design. So this is the open toggle background color, and we're using a white closed toggle background color. And then we'll go to the title text settings. I'm going to copy this color code here. Open title text color is going to be this, and it's the same color for the title text color in general. We're using H4 for the title heading level, since the previous one was H3, so now we're moving on to H4. And we're using that same font, Cormorant Garamond here. A bold font weight. A title text size across different screen sizes, so 36 pixels on desktop. We're bringing that down to 34 pixels on tablet and 28 pixels on phone. And then we'll go to the closed title settings. We switch back to desktop here. We're using that same color here for the closed title text color. And then we'll go to the body text settings. The body font we're using is Carla. 17 pixels for the text size and 1.9 EM for the body line height. So if I open this, let me just close this for now. This is the outlook we have, the look we have up until now. Then I'll go to the spacing settings of my module. We're going to use some responsive padding values. Let me just enable responsive options here. So it's going to be 2% for the top and bottom on desktop, 5% for the left and the right side, and the top and the bottom is going to change on smaller screen sizes. So that'll be 4% for tablet for both options and 6% on phone. And then I'll go to the border settings. I'm going to use a darker border color, so it's going to be entirely black here. And we're also going to add 30 pixels of top margin to the toggle content in the advanced tab. And this will just generate a bit of space between the title and the actual toggle content, just to have that clean feel going on. So you can now clone this as many times as you want, depending on the number of frequently asked questions that you have. And we're going to change the state of the first one to open, so people know that they can kind of, navigate between the different questions. It just helps from a user experience perspective. And once you have completed the first row, you can clone this 3 times. So the number of times we're cloning this matches 1, 2, 3, 4, matches the number of text modules we have in the second row of the first section. Make sure that you change all duplicate content here. Just gonna change the titles here to make sure you guys see it in the outcome. So make sure that you change all of the titles here. I'm just gonna change 1 per row, so you guys will be able to see that each one is linked to a different text module. All right. Of course, you will need to change all of the answers to each frequently asked question as well. All right, so now that we have the design in place, we can focus on functionality. I'm just gonna quickly check if you guys are still joining in. Seems like you are. So if you guys have questions, leave a comment. All right, let's move on to the next and last part of this tutorial, which focuses on functionality. So now we have everything in place, but we don't have that click functionality going on yet. So to make that work, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some different consecutive CSS IDs to these modules over here. I'm going to open the first one. I'm going to add FAQ-item-1. So that's the first one. It's going to be linked to the first row here, which will assign a CSS ID to in the next part. But we're going to do the same thing for each one of the text modules over here and change the number at the end. So the first one has a 1 at the end, the second one has a 2 at the end, the third one has a 3 at the end. So you add this to the advanced tab over here, CSS ID, and the last one obviously has a 4 at the end. Let me just change that there. And we're going to do the same thing for the rows, but we're going to use a different CSS ID. So we'll start with the first one. Over here, we're going to use FAQ-tab-1 for the first one. So this will be linked to the first item there. And we're going to reuse that CSS ID with a different number at the end. You get the approach. So it's going to be 2 for the second row and 3 for the third one. Frequently asked questions tab, and 4 at the end for the fourth one. There we go. Now that we have this kind of link going on, so at this point they're just plain CSS IDs, but there's a certain link between the rows and the modules being that number. That number is what's going to help those two different things connect to each other inside the code we add. And we're going to add a code module right below the divider module inside the first row of our first section. So I'm going to add a code module there. You can place this anywhere you want. It just seemed like a good place to put my code module in. And I'm going to add some style tags and script tags. The style tags will be for the CSS code, and the script tags will be for the JavaScript jQuery code. Okay, so let me just grab the CSS code. And by the way, you guys can grab the CSS code by going to the blog post, which is directly mentioned in the description below. And you'll also find a download folder where you can download the JSON file for free, upload this layout to your website and get started with it without having to recreate it from scratch. But if you want to recreate it from scratch, you can use the blog post to navigate through all the steps and grab the code as well. So this is the CSS code we're using. It looks strangely positioned over here, but that'll be fixed once we exit the Visual Builder. And we're also going to paste the following jQuery code inside the script tag. So the CSS code in between the style tags and the following code in between the script tags. And that will do for our design. So I'm just going to save this and exit the Visual Builder. There we go. So the CSS code and the jQuery code, make sure that by default the first option is enabled. Now if I click through the different items, different rows will show up. And that's the reason why I changed the title over here, so you guys can see that these are actually changing. So there we go. I'm just going to check to see if you guys have any questions. Don't see any questions regarding the tutorial, so yeah. That was it for this live stream tutorial. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and we hope that you're enjoying this ongoing Divi design initiative where we try to put something extra into your design toolbox each and every week. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.